Welcome back to Stocklabs for another market recap. This is for the week that ended November 5th. So first trading week in November. We had I think did the FOMC gave a statement or something in the middle of the week? I forget. If so, it didn't amount to anything. And then we had NFP non-farm payrolls on Friday today, which came in a little bit better than expected. So a little bit of a bounce back from the prior month that was kind of terrible. But yeah, so solid week for markets. Basically everything was up across the board. You remember at the end of October, so last week's recap, we were going to remain bullish to start November, and that sort of paid off pretty easily for this first week of November. I'm just going to go into our sort of index ETFs to check out performance. We got 6% out of the Russell. Russell was a little bit of I think it was a little bit of an underperformer last week, if I remember correctly. So it kind of slingshotted up to the forefront this week. The NASDAQ was up 3.25%. I mean, it remains just a horse. It's not, you can't even get a down day out of this thing. Seems like the past month or so. It's kind of unbelievable. It almost reminds me of in 2020, summer 2020 when Massa and all the SoftBank guys were sort of rigging tech stocks higher, with all their option gambits and stuff. That the action has been that strong. It's just, it's like it's being forced up. S&P's, up 2%, solid week, and the Dow trailing up 1.4%. So it's okay, but Dow's usually slower than the rest of the indices anyway. Gold had a decent week. Those have been sort of few and far between. Up 2% is pretty good. Kept up with S&P. And bonds bounced up 1.25%. So oil was down-ish to flat for the week. I mean, it had a big bounce back on Friday. At Thursday's close, oil was headed for a pretty bad week, but bounced back Friday to sort of salvage that. As for our mega cap stocks, I think you can probably imagine how these are going to look just based on what the indices did. But Tesla up another 10%. This is after having a 22% week or 23% week last week, if I can remember. So same thing. It's just kind of it's kind of crazy, but yeah, some of these stocks are just relentless right now. Facebook, big bounce, 5.5%. Amazon bounced 4.5%. So those are the two big ones out of the, besides Tesla, but Facebook, Amazon, two big ones out of the rest. And then you sort of see every week there's usually two or three that outperform big, and then the rest muddle along. I mean, the rest of these basically underperformed the indices. So Microsoft up 1.5%. That's below the S&P, below the NASDAQ. Apple 1%. A lot of nothing. Google up 0.5%. I mean, that's basically flat. And Netflix finally pulled back. Down 6.5% for the week. We sort of had a theme of, well, I'll get into that. let me just look here. Industries for the week, strong across the board, sort of heavily skewed towards consumer, industrials, services. Those were the big leaders on a median basis. And then for subsectors, you can finally see that some of these sectors really took off from, a performance standpoint. A lot of these recaps that I've been showing, you would only get a handful of sectors that were up even 5%, for an entire week on a median basis. And then this week, you sort of see an explosion here. All this stuff, 6, 8, 6, 5, 5, 5, 5. So this is 50. So over 50 sectors, over 5%. 1, 2. So 52 sectors over 5%. And how many were down? Literally none were down over 5%. So everything else, this is okay. So there's not even, 20. So there's only like 17 subsectors that were even down for the week. So breadth-wise, really strong week, which that's kind of what you'd expect if the Russell's up, 6% for a week is a huge week. It's unlikely to repeat something like that very soon. But it doesn't mean that everything's going to drop. It just means that you have to expect that there's going to be some consolidation or sideways action. But like I was saying, like I was starting to finish with mentioning, Netflix pulling back this week has sort of coincided with, you see all the best performing sectors are sort of have to do with, quote unquote, the reopening trade or reflation trade, the getting out and going outside trade. So that sort of forces a little bit of rotation out of the other side of that, which Netflix is definitely part of the stay home, be on Zoom, watch Netflix, that sort of lifestyle. If people are positioning now for that to end, then you would expect Netflix to pull back some. But I mean, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But you can just see how the rotations sort of play out between sectors and then some of the individual stocks, and where market participants are positioning for based on the outlook that's looking likely at the moment. All of this stuff isn't very much in flux all the time. Okay, let's jump into Screener and check out our sorted performance. So 1 to 5 billion, up 5.25%. Okay, pretty close to the IWM performance. Mid caps, $5 to $10 billion cap, up 3.6%. So a little bit of a drop. Then large caps, we've got 1.85%. So that's mostly in line with the S&P. Mega caps, 50 to 100 billion cap, only up 7/10. So that's kind of, I don't know, kind of I mean, not surprising, but it sticks out relative to the other ones. And Terra caps over 100 billion, up 1.84%. So basically in line with the S&P too. I'm just going to. It's kind of funny that there was a, between the 10 and 50 billion cap and the Terra caps were identical, and then the mega caps were sticking out as a little bit weaker. I just want to see some of the top performers. So we have Wait, I forget which one I'm on. Terracat, 100 billion plus. Okay. So for the week, Qualcomm up 22%. I missed that, and then I didn't know it was up that much. I kind of saw it was up big um, on Friday or whatever, but I didn't realize it had that strong of a week the whole way. Airbnb up 18% for the week. That's pretty strong week. Like I said, sort of coincides with the um, sort of reopening and everyone getting out, traveling again, booking places. So understandable. Nvidia, this has been like a beast. 16%. AMD, same thing. Applied Materials, solid week. Sort of one of the slower semiconductors, but quietly, it's basically at all-time highs. So that's good. Pfizer had a big week, mostly on toward the end of the week. They had the announcement for the new what do you call it? The new pill form COVID treatment. Okay, Starbucks, nice week. Yeah, here's our Tesla, 10%. Okay, and okay, let's not go through all these, but you get the idea. And I just wanted to see in the other one, in just mega caps, what was. Okay, Datadog had a good week. Came out with earnings. Ferrari is, I think Ferrari is. This should be close to highs, if I remember correctly. I have to look at it, but okay. Let me see here. What was dragging this down? Did something blow up this week? Oh, okay. So these two are in here. So Moderna and BioNTech both had terrible weeks. Um, I think just because, well, actually, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate exactly why, but I guess if Pfizer is looking like they're going to be the just only winner in that space, then it would make sense that people were bailing on the others. Um, so yeah, that would cause a drag on that. Makes sense. Let's jump into intelligence, see what we have setting up for the second week in November. Um, Not much. This is Natty Gas, and I think this is not the actual commodity. I think this ETF is for sort of nat gas producers and stuff, but I'm not 100% sure. It might be the actual commodity. And nat gas has been on a tear for months, but okay, it's rated bullish for this week. Mid caps rated bullish. So that's good. Maybe you get some churn at the index level, but you get some of the um, under the surface stocks moving, which are kind of the best markets. It's usually tougher when the indexes or indices are just moving up and things under the surface aren't participating because I don't know. It's more difficult that way. And let's see what's going to drop this week. Drip is going to drop. So Drip is Bear Oil and Gas. So Stocklabs is looking for the bounce that started on Friday in oil to continue next week, which it could. I mean, the trend in oil and all of these in oil itself and oil and these oil and gas stocks has been strong. So if that was enough of a dip, then you would expect money to come back into them and a lot of the trend followers to take this dip as an opportunity to um, to either initiate or add to positions and hopefully push it higher. So we'll see if this continues to bounce. Well, drip won't bounce, but if the sector continues to bounce, probably going to keep an eye on this on especially Monday, Tuesday, to see how it goes. Okay, that's it for this stuff. We did have a couple overbought signals on the overall market, sort of midweek. What is this? This is so November 1st was, I guess, Monday. November 3rd was Wednesday. Yeah, so a couple overbought signals. The statistics for these overbought signals is kind of mixed. So maybe that does coincide with some of the churn I was just mentioning before at the index level. So we'll see. Just something to keep an eye on. We're from Monday, so we're already 4 days into Monday's signal. I mean, this hasn't played out because on the fifth day, well, unless we drop a decent amount on Monday, that could put that closer to correct thing. But yeah, we'll see. It's just another data point to keep an eye on. Seasonality, yeah. So we mentioned this at the end of October. November's strongest month of the is it second strongest month of the year. So it's really not surprising that people would come in and just plow into all sorts of stuff in the market the first week in November. Obviously, we're not the only people that know these statistics, so makes sense. But there will be pullbacks. Obviously, there always are. Okay, so that's it. Strong week, good week for everyone, basically across the board. Unless you're trying to play the short side, which there hasn't really been a reason to for a while. But maybe maybe the market will change with, I don't know, some sort of new fixation. But we'll deal with that when it comes. So good week, everyone. We'll basically stay somewhat bullish for the second week, and then we'll check back in at the end of the week. So talk to you all later. Bye.